New reports tonight that the special counsel overseeing the investigation into the alleged relationship between Russia in the election and in the transition team of the President-elect Trump, it is widening, we're told, by the Washington Post, based on unidentified sources, into possible obstruction of justice, specifically on the part of the president. Then, according to those anonymous sources again, the Washington Post reporting the obstruction of justice investigation started in the wake of the president's firing of former FBI Director James Comey. Again, none of this sourced beyond anonymous sources. My next guest says he's seen no evidence whatsoever of a crime, no collusion, no obstruction when it comes to the Russia investigation. And joining us tonight, a man who certainly would know and understand the distinctions, Michael Mukasey, former federal judge. He served as Attorney General under President George W. Bush, and it is great to have you with us, Judge.
Good to be with you.
Let's start with what appears to be a widening of the probe tonight. If the Post, and by the way, I put the hypothetical in there because there is a huge disconnect between truth and the Washington Post and the New York Times, too often for us to simply say the report is accurate. Nonetheless, your thoughts?
Well, a couple of thoughts. First of all, obstruction of what? Is this based on Comey having said that the president said he hoped the Flynn investigation would come out with no charges against Flynn, or he think that Flynn had suffered enough, or that he was a good guy? Is it that? If that's the case, I don't see where the obstruction is, because obstruction is defined as an attempt to stand in the way of an investigation corruptly. It's not simply expressing a wish, even if you think the wish is from the president in order. He has to be acting corruptly, and in connection with the Flynn investigation, I can't see it.
Let's take the firing of James Comey himself. Let me introduce another hypothetical. Perhaps that would be, there's some construction on the part of Robert Mueller that is somehow obstruction.
Well, there you run into the problem that Jim Comey was the person to whom the people who were conducting the investigation were reporting. He wasn't conducting the investigation. He may have been supervising it. Others were supervising it too. But you don't stop an investigation by firing the head of the FBI. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And at this point, let me ask...
Also, which investigation? Is it because the investigation that, the only other investigation other than the Flynn investigation, which was and is criminal, is a national security investigation, which is not a criminal investigation. And that, again, was going on regardless.
Do you find it preposterous that there are 5 congressional investigations underway, 2 of them by the oversight committees, of intelligence oversight committees of the House and the Senate, who have oversight of 17 intelligence agencies that apparently have still not found a crime? They have not found evidence whatsoever of collusion of any kind. Otherwise, that would be before the committee and actionable on the part of one of our agencies, certainly the Justice Department.
No, it would not be. I mean, collusion, you will look in vain in Title 18 for a crime of collusion. If you are rooting for the success of somebody else's crime, and the only crime here, by the way, if you're talking about the Russians, is that Russian hacking into the Democratic National Committee and Podesta. But if that's the crime, then
there is no crime.
Then there's no crime by anybody else, because hoping that it succeeds is not a crime.
Chris Farrell telling us here earlier he thought the president's best option was to tell the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, to order the special counsel to narrow his investigation to a crime. And Chris Farrell's judgment being that there is no crime, and that would mitigate, if not eliminate, the special counsel's efforts.
That's the only thing that a special counsel is supposed to be appointed to investigate.
Right.
They're not supposed to be appointed, as far as I know, to conduct parallel intelligence investigations.
Your judgment, advise the president, if you would, Judge. What should he do in this situation?
Well, I think that somebody's got to sit down and have a conversation with Rod Rosenstein about the scope of the investigation as defined in the document that he issued, and see whether something can be done about that. I think if you're talking then about an obstruction case based on something that goes on between Comey and the president, you've got the simple fact that Mueller and Comey are not just acquaintances, but friends, and that perhaps Robert Mueller ought to consider whether he should stand aside.
I've called for exactly that result for some time, based on what is an obvious potential conflict of interest, which you would think a man with the ethics that Mueller presumably possesses, he would have already done.
But understand that if he's investigating only issues relating to the campaign and Russia, then there wouldn't be a conflict because Comey is not in the middle of that.